Hey everybody, here's a little bit of real talk from me, because everybody's talking about the presidential debate. Um, there were points that could be made all the way around about policy and this, that, and the other. And I don't really want to address that. A lot of people, though, have noticed that the debate was a complete and utter travesty in terms of getting people to actually talk about something of substance. And I would propose that we actually have a formal debate be a formal debate if we want to do that. And this isn't about this previous debate per se, at least in terms of what we need to do to fix the issue. This has been a long-standing problem, and generally why I don't watch debates. The only reason I watched last night's debate was I was hoping to be entertained by a bunch of crazy people. That's why I watched. I wanted to see how rude Trump would get, and I wanted to see how old and senile Joe Biden would appear to be. And I got a little bit entertained by that, but not as much as I would like. But in terms of substance, I never expected any real substance to come out of it, because Trump isn't very good at making his points. And Biden just attacks without making any substantive points of his own. You just can't say anything. My opponent is bad. Well, we assumed that. He's your opponent. Basically, if Trump had come out and said, Jesus Christ is Lord and Savior, I'm pretty sure Biden would have gone, I disagree, even though he's Catholic. So neither one of them said anything useful. They basically just bickered all night, which is kind of what I was expecting, but I was hoping it'd be funnier. But never mind that. Here's what I think is part of the major problem. You have a debate format where, and this isn't Chris Wallace's fault per se, although he could have fixed it himself if he'd so chosen. But you have questions that nobody's known, supposedly. I don't know how much Chris Wallace knew beforehand, but still. That nobody knew what the questions were, and that was good. They're not supposed to. But you have a situation where they're asking weird questions. And this has always been the case in every political debate I've ever seen. They ask the longest-winded, vague, weird, loaded questions possible. So instead of a proper moderator in a proper debate, in a proper academic intellectual debate, would ask something, let's just say, the guy running for office is named Bob. And he might say, Bob, you have made controversial statements concerning X. Would you care to elaborate as to why you do not have position X or do? Or would you care to substantiate or elaborate on your position X? And address the criticisms. And then what you do as a moderator is you then go beep, and then you don't say crap for their allotted time. You don't challenge them. You don't question them again. You don't try to interrupt them when they're trying to give an answer to make them focus on the question. That's not your job as a moderator. The job of the moderator in a debate is in no shape, form, or fashion to get the answer the moderator wants, to get the answer the moderator thinks that the questioner wants answered. That you're not supposed to do that. Your job is to keep people on point in terms of their time usage and in terms of making sure it's just not a couple of people just yelling at each other all night, which Chris Wallace did a bad job of that. God bless him, I think he tried, but he did a bad job. I'm pretty sure I would have done a better job. Because I would have just cut off everybody's mics. Every time somebody was supposed to talk, I'm like, okay, cut the other guy's mic for this exact amount of allotted time and not let him respond until he's supposed to. But he didn't do that. And that's real easy to do. Mostly would have been Trump, but whatever. But then there's the problem that they don't do that, right? So what they do is they'll ask something like, given all these long lists of things, are you actually literally Hitler? Or some asinine thing like that. They're like, given that the Boy Scouts of America are a organization that helps young men, or young boys, and no girls apparently, try to develop into functioning adults through task assignment and whatnot. Are you literally Hitler? And it's like, no, that whole leading part of the thing had nothing to do with the question, or even when it does, it's so bizarre. It's like, I'm going to take somebody's political talking point and assume that that's the case, and then ask you why you do that. It's have you stopped beating your wife, right? They ask have you stopped beating your wife so many times, so many false dichotomies, all the time in these presidential debates. It's like, they get up there and they're like, like the white supremacy question that Chris Wallace asked. It was a terrible question. I'm sorry, guys, but it's a terrible question. A terrible question would not have been, do you denounce white supremacy? And give him the floor. That's it. That's all he had to say. But no, he had to get this long-winded, weird, vague, meandering question out of the way, which is, given blah, 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 do you denounce white supremacists? And then he threw in, and militia groups. And then Trump tried to answer with sure and began to elaborate, and then Chris Wallace cut him off and kept going. And then Trump pointed out, okay, well, which groups? Which is a pretty fair question, because he didn't just say white supremacists. He said, which groups? And then asked about Proud Boys, which I'm pretty sure is not a white supremacist organization. I don't think that is at all likely that that an organization which is very racially and culturally and sexually diverse as the Proud Boys is at all likely to be a white supremacist organization. They did have some white supremacists in their organization in the early formation stages, but I mean, crap, sort of the Democrats for like 150 years, so that doesn't really fly. But regardless, that's not any of their official positions as an organization have anything to do with that. Are some members of it white supremacists? Possibly. They're closeted if they are, because they get kicked out as soon as they admit that they are. Which has happened to a lot of people. Happened right after Charlottesville. A bunch of them got kicked out. So that's the thing. So then it's like, okay, and then Chris Wallace even asked him to stand by, or would you tell them to stand by or stand down or whatever? And then Trump's like, yeah, stand by, stand down, whatever. Don't. Basically, what Trump was trying to say was, yeah, don't be violent. But he couldn't answer it that way because the question was weird. And, for some reason it included militia groups. There are white militia groups, there are black militia groups, there are racist militia groups on either side. There are totally non-racist militia groups on either side. Militia groups is a complete red herring to white supremacy. Yeah, it exists in some of them and it doesn't in others. You can't just say, oh, militia groups. It's like saying, I don't know, it's just stupid. It was a terrible leading question. And then, of course, you have the second problem. The flip side of that is not only do they get asked stupid leading questions, that the moderator then tries to interrupt and put his own, spin on and try to tease out the answer he either wants or thinks the other people who ask the question wants. I don't know why they would do either, but whatever, that's not proper. You have politicians trying to answer questions that they don't actually really want to answer. So, you try to, you just try to get a simple yes or no question. Do you denounce X group? And then even if it is, maybe if it is, a direct question with a simple answer, because it's not loaded for some reason, then they load their answer ridiculously. Because they're like, I don't know, I got 2 minutes of time. I guess I'm just going to meander through this answer instead of, just actually clarifying anything. Because they don't want to actually clarify anything. They just, they kind of want to make it seem like they answered the question, but, did they really? And then there's, but, they do that a lot. And they really need to stop doing that. That's on the politicians. Can't really systemically do anything about that, because the whole point of being a politician at that point in a debate is not to answer questions, at least not easily and succinctly, so that people can understand what the crap you're talking about. Because that doesn't make good entertainment, and it doesn't play well on TV and radio. And it makes everything you say falsifiable. They don't want to do that. I don't know how to help you there. But if you're a moderator, hey, you know what? You're supposed to be a relatively impartial third party, first of all. How about anytime you see a leading question, you just don't ask it. And when the people who are supposed to be answering it try to answer, you shut up. And every time that you're asking a person question, you cut off B person's mic. And when you ask B person question, you cut off A person's mic. So that at least nobody's talking over each other. And they can actually answer the question. Now, they're probably still not going to because they're politicians. But that would be better. Here's the last problem, though. And this is the biggest one. All that other stuff is bad. But here's the biggest problem. Most of you are suckers. I hate to say that, but it's true. Most people out there in the world are suckers. And you don't actually want even to see a formal debate. You don't really. A lot of people do. A lot of people want to actually get somewhere and see if they can get their mind changed and be convinced of something. But most of you don't. Most of the people in the world don't. They have their minds made up. They're looking for gotcha moments. And all of you who are looking for gotcha moments, rather than actual answers to actual questions, are why the debate format is terrible. Because what you want is entertainment. You pretend what you want are answers, but you actually want entertainment. If you at least were honest enough to say that you don't care about what anybody has to say because your mind's already been made up for whatever crazy reason or other, or rational reason, then, at least then, okay, I can respect that, and you can have some crazy screaming matches. But then don't go around pretending like what you wanted wasn't a couple of monkeys flinging poop at each other. That's exactly what you wanted. Don't pretend. The handful of you that actually want a real debate, you should try to push for the kinds of things that I've outlined. Vocally. A lot. And you should probably refuse to watch debates completely until they are, because the ratings are what drive the thing. If you're somebody who wants entertainment, don't pretend like you want to debate. Be vocal about the fact that all you really wanted to do was see a couple of monkeys flinging poop at each other. Don't pretend. At least then you can maybe get what you want without everybody else pretending like, the issue was one thing when it wasn't that. And if you're an organization that pretends, that actually wants to show a debate so that the American people can make up their minds, don't do stupid stuff like, pander to the people who just want to be entertained. That's my 2 cents.